Hello, it's Media Center Ukraine, Odessa, and our today's briefing is dedicated to human rights violation on the occupied territories. Today with us is Vira Yastrebova, lawyer director of the NGO Східна правозахисна група. Hello, thank you for holding me there, and thank you for hosting me there. I want to tell you to mass media, to our citizens about the situations in the temporarily occupied territories. What are the actions of the Russian Federations? What are their certain actions? How they try to control the territory of Ukraine? We saw the next tendencies during the last time. It's forced passportization of the locals. You know that people in the temporarily occupied territories, they save their passports of the citizens of Ukraine, and the government of the Russian Federation doesn't like such people, and these are disloyal populations for these governments. And the Russian Federation terror this population, and they arrest locals. During the last time, we fixed 12 administrative arrests within temporarily occupied territories of Donetsk and Lugansk territories. As a rule, their narratives are unchanged, and their as well as their actions. And now we are gathering the information about another temporarily occupied territories. I have some information that there are administrative arrests in another occupied territories, and in fact, the Russian Federation acts against our population and against people who refuse to renounce Ukrainian citizenship. They don't want to get passports of the Russian Federation. We understand that the Russians are waiting for us and understand that they have to go away from these territories. But now they are trying to make a picture that our populations was waiting for them and is glad to see them, but it's not true. Why this question about passport issuance is so urgent? First of all, we are talking about elections, and now these processes are large scale, and this passport of the Russian Federation allow them to vote and to join the party United Russia. They think that this helps them to form this like a picture of support of their governments, and it's like the policy of the USSR that if you are not a member of a party, you won't be a director or won't have such a high position. That is why practically all the workers of institutions, different public enterprises, they try to join this party. Some territories don't have their rights beginning with 2014, but the rest of the territory, they remind about Ukraine, and they don't want to get these passports. And what we tell you to do. Please avoid these contacts with security forces and with their law enforcements who try to control over you. They try to implement the ideas of Putin and Kremlin, but the Russian, it's not the single act of the Russian Federation. They have an educational initiative, and we have told you earlier that the educational programs for our students, they try to reform educational institutions, and they try to reform also higher educational institution. They have formed a new university of prosecutors in Lugansk Oblast, and the order of setting up of this institution is signed by the Russian Federation. The Russian Federation governments understand that their only support is security forces. That is why they try to form these educational institutions, but these institutions have their own direction for preparing security forces in order to support and to undergo this terror on the occupied territories. I want to precise also that the Russian Federation uses the principle of compulsion. The workers of public organizations and institutions are over this control and are under the pressure. Their directors and collaborators control if those workers have renounced their Ukrainian citizenship, and if they implement them, if they submit application for getting Russian passport, and if they are members of the United Russia. For today, what they were able to create. They created electional committees. Now they are forming judicial system in the occupied territories. It is their next element of compulsion. At one hand, they are searching for disloyal population, and they used pressure under them. They launch criminal proceedings against them, even without any preliminary investigations. And the last stage is legalization through judicial institutions in the territories of the occupied territories. As I have said, that in the Lugansk, in Lugansk and Donetsk occupied territories, the Russian government worked with betrayers of our state, and they began to collaborate with occupants, and they were working under the flag of the Russian Federation, and they convicted our Ukrainians Ukrainians who are disloyal to these people. And today the situation is different. They are trying to form this judicial system. They use Russians loyal to their governments, and I want to tell you that if you want to form a career there, the betrayers are not guests anywhere, and you should remember that. What about this formation? To in order to start pro- these processes, they try to form these legal systems and these new courts, and they try to elect new members who will control all the disloyal people. And now the dictatorial regime of Kremlin, they want to eliminate all the disloyal population. And what will be going on? The terror will be increasing. Now there is a plan of actions, and security forces on grounds have its plan. And what was going on the on the occupied territories earlier, it will be increasing and it will be worsening. And disloyal people will be transferred to in other places of living. They will form new gramadas, new territories, and they transfer Russian population there. What is the reason of it? They want to create environment of people who want to live within their policy, who want to live within their governments, and who won't struggle against it. You know about the program Sootechestvennik of Putin, and it was implemented after the occupation of Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast. And people who joined this program, they were promised to get funds for purchasing apartments and to live there with money. But our people understood that it was a false promise, and they didn't want to join them. And we know such a situation when people transfer to the Russian Federation, to the furthest points, furthest settlements of the Russian Federation, and these people were not invited, not in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, and big cities. They were sent to low industrial regions, and they have to work there. So, and all these funds they spent on ticket, and if these people didn't have any own funds, they had to live there and to work there. And the situation on these territories is very complicated. Why? Because the social sphere is very low and decreased there, and at the moment, people who are without sources for living, they have such a situation that prices for food and medicines, for hygiene units are higher by are increased by 3-5 times, and people don't have the possibility to buy even hygiene, elementary hygiene kits. That is why all this uh, situation tells us that this local governance and local policy want to provide a picture that our Ukrainian citizens were waiting for Putin and for their policy, but I want to tell you that our people are waiting for our armed forces and for Ukraine. And I want to tell you that we support their contacts with the people in the temporarily occupied territories. And I want to share these materials, and you will be the first with whom I will share after the deoccupation. And I want you all to know about the problems of our population within occupied territories. And we have to provide all the sources and all the help, all the aid to those people who are now in a very critical situation, because now our locals who are in these occupied territories, they have to renounce their Ukrainian citizenship to be forced enrollment into the military units or to study history, which hasn't been exist, but which was created by Putin. And now I am ready to answer the questions. Thank you for the floors. Uh, Music journal. You tell that Russia is going to hold elections in the occupied territories. When it will be going on and at what level? What language do you want to answer? So the thing is that the Russian Federation wants to hold a local election, and it wants to join the maximum amount of voters, and in order not to repeat their previous experience um, uh, when they brought by bus local population to Rostov and gave them these passports under pressure. Now they correct their mistakes, and this work is very active. So this forced passportization, it will help them to hold these elections, and also the fact of joining this party. And what about tendency with passportization? The key difference with the previous situation within Donetsk and Luhansk region, it is excluding of such an element as getting of unrecognized passports of unrecognized republics. They don't use such policy now, and now they are trying to make this forced passportization in order to form new pictures for the whole world and to discriminate Ukraine, to show that the locals have made their choice, but it's not true. And how many people transferred from Russia to Ukraine and vice versa. First of all, I want to tell you that after the occupation of territories, the territories that was occupied after the 24th of February, the Russian Federation made all possible in order not to allow people to go to the Ukrainian territories. They blocked the corridors, these evacuation corridors, and they were shelling these buses. We know a lot of examples when people crossed the border of Russia, of another countries, and then they came back to Ukraine. The total amount of people transferring to Russia and crossing their body was published in their source, and we presented this amount with my colleague Pavlo Lysansky, and we told you about it in this floor in your media center, and I want to precise that they manipulate this data. They have changed all the data about departed children. We screened this page of printed report, so they changed this amount all the time. And I want to say that only crime and only thief has precise data about their crimes. So the only one thief is Putin, and he is the only person who knows the total amount. And now I want to tell you not about the amount of departed people. I want to tell you that Russian Federation was focused on certain professions. First of all, they transferred their teachers who have taught our children, builders, doctors. We have told you that these specialists, they have their own idea and their own line to keep the policy of the governments, but their goal was to transfer even mainly the people of those professions. And they want to make a picture that everything is functioning in a good way in the occupied territories, and they doubled the salary for professionals who agreed to work in the occupied territories, and they also awarded different military awards to these people who agreed to implement their policy within the occupied territories. Madam Vira, thank you very much for being with us, and we hope to see you again. Thank you very much. It was Vira Yastrebova, lawyer, director of the NGO Skhidna Pravahizna Grupa. It was our last briefing for today. See you the next week.